Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to talk about Binding Heal and really the past and the future of Holy Priest. Alright? As you guys may or may not have heard, in 7.2.5, of course, Binding Heal is going to be buffed. And it's going to be, even more efficient than ever. Even more, mana cost reduction than ever. And it's really not what the spell needs. And I kind of want to talk about, and it kind of reflects on how poor the Holy Priest talents are in general. So, as I kind of talked about when we had the Legendary Ring discussion, the Holy Priest Legendaries are either not very impactful, not very good, or just don't have good competition, right? So that it was something where no matter what talent the Holy Priest Ring gave us, it would be bad, and it would not be worth going for because there's not good competition there. And some things just should not be talents and should just be baseline, like Binding Heal. So going into it, I mean, historically, you look at like Warlords of Draenor, or even before that, Binding Heal would give you Old Serendipity. Old Serendipity basically made your cast speed and your cast speed faster and your mana cost lower for Prayer of Healing primarily, and then of course it would work for heal as well. So this was something that facilitated you using other abilities. It wasn't something that was your primary heal, but it was something that really helped you in terms of your mana sustainability, and it really helped you kind of dish out more healing later on because you're using a very efficient ability to kind of set you up for later. So it wasn't something where you'd really ever be able to spam Prayer of Healing in the past because you needed to have Serendipity, because the mana cost of Prayer of Healing at the time was ridiculously high, the cast was ridiculously long, and if you didn't have Serendipity, you just couldn't do anything. The nice thing about it was that Binding Heal was enough healing to allow you to Prayer of Healing, Binding Heal, Prayer of Healing, Binding Heal, Prayer of Healing. And you'd actually be able to do a decent amount of HPS in between your Prayer of Healings, because obviously Prayer of Healing was the thing you wanted to spam the most. But Binding Heal was a good way to kind of keep you sustained and keep the healing going. And the efficiency of it was fantastic, The third target that it hits is always very, very efficient, always very, very powerful. But as we get into Legion, of course, Emerald Nightmare, Trial of Valor, it was never really possible to spec into Binding Heal at all. This was mainly due to the fact that Trail of Light, our talent, would proc another flash heal instead of the Trail of Light heal. This bug basically double procced Blessing of Toure for us, our artifact trait, and made it ridiculously OP for us just to spam flash heal all the time. We were just flash heal bots for those two raids. They fixed it in 7.1.5 as Nighthold comes out, and make it so that, flash heal is one flash heal. Trail of Light is its own heal. But on top of that, they sort of made it worse because at the same time, they buffed Piety. And of course, they added the Palm CD reduction to the Piety talent, and then that makes it have extremely high synergy with Benediction. Even as they're nerfing Benediction at the same time, it still was a net gain because you're getting even more palms out at the same time, or in faster time. So you get this kind of situation where if they didn't buff Piety, they didn't change it at all, we would have been taking Binding Heal 100%. And it wasn't something where it was like, oh my gosh, we could have used this awesome spell. It's like, no, Binding Heal actually doesn't really fit that well in what Holy Priest is today at all, unfortunately. It makes for a very good alternative playstyle if you're really interested in it. You can, of course, have success with it, but it's not something that's a mainstream and very successful, very consistent talent to take and build to go for, because it doesn't fit in well with everything else that's going on. What I mean by that is the fact that there's many spells that kind of do the same thing but better, and in many cases they kind of help you pump out more healing rather than this kind of balanced build that you're kind of seeing out of Binding Heal right now. So going into like spot healing, for example, if you need to be able to top somebody off right away, you're just going to flash heal them. You're going to need flash heal them, then you're going to Serenity them, then you're going to want Serenity back again. You're looking at fights like, Star Augur kind of comes to mind, or Spellblade comes to mind, where you really need to single target these people, get them topped off. And of course, if you don't have the debuff, it's not very beneficial to you to be using Binding Heal in that situation. If you do, it can be pretty good, but you also hit points in time where you are just healing through the debuff, but then the debuff pops, and then you need to actually slam down some flash heals on them. Going on from there, it's something where you also need to be having max use out of the Serendipity effects for both Holy Words. So, of course, we're not really strapped for uptime on our Holy Words, Going into Tier 20 when we get the Force set, it's going to be really, really easy to be using lots and lots of Holy Words. As often as we possibly can. So you also have a situation where You know, if there's AoE damage going out, Prayer of Healing is going to be the answer. It's going to be the solution to this problem. And if you ever are holding onto one Holy Word, which has happened to me many times, especially on fights like Spellblade, like Star Augur, where you get into an entire phase which is dedicated to spot healing, and you're not really able to use Sanctify much until maybe, you know, 45 seconds later, 30 seconds later, which is a long, long time to be holding on to a Holy Word. But if there's nothing to heal, there's nothing to heal, right? And it's no good just to cast a Holy Word for shits and giggles. It has to be effective. So, you get into these situations where on many of these boss fights, it really just doesn't pull enough, it doesn't do enough, and it's not flexible enough for a spell that really looks very flexible. It's not. And it's not flexible for the fact that it's not giving you any kind of recourse, any kind of protection. If you already have a Holy Word off cooldown, don't bring up the belt to me. And at the same time, it's, you know, it's something that is a very enjoyable spell for us. It's a very fun spell, but the interactions with the Holy Words is not as impactful as just using your regular Flash Heal or your regular Prayer of Healing, and it's not as significant in terms of overall value. You know, having a more mana efficient ability and making it an even lower cost. I mean, they could make it free and we'd still use it sparingly, maybe, right? Because you have to compare that ability towards, do I want to get, you know, maybe 10%, 15, 20% more Prayer of Mendings out because I have all this CD reduction that I'm getting over the course of an encounter. And guess what? Not much is going to trump the mana efficiency of Prayer of Mending combined with Benediction, right? There's so much built into our spec around the efficiency of this ability. And as we get into higher and higher levels of Say Your Prayers, the artifact trait, and as we now all have baseline 404 Say Your Prayers, and the traits off Gul'dan, or the relic off Gul'dan is only going to get, or Kil'jaeden, I should say, sorry, is going to give you Say Your Prayers as well. You know, Say Your Prayers is one trait that just keeps getting better and better and better and better and better because it procs off itself. So, do you really want to get rid of extra cooldown reduction for Prayer of Mending for something that can kind of work sometimes, can really just kind of fall flat on its face? And while it's very mana efficient, it's very hard to overheal with it when you're using it properly. It's not giving that same benefit that Prayer of Mending has. It's very hard for anything in our spec to actually compete with Prayer of Mending, and I'm sure the devs know that. But at the same time, it also feels really bad when so much of your spec seems to revolve around a passive little ping pong that just flies around the entire fight as you're pushing other buttons. You know, if you would actually take all of the healing that's coming out of Prayer of Mending and just rip it out of your spellbook, it would, or rip it out of your healing breakdown, it would be ridiculous how much healing is just coming out of this. If you compare the mana costs of just casting Prayer of Mending on cooldown versus, you know, how much healing that you're getting out of Prayer of Healing for the course of the fight, it's so ridiculous how much easy healing you're getting out of using Prayer of Mending compared to just any of your other more expensive abilities. You know, the mana efficiency, the effectiveness, the, you know, overall healing that you're getting out of Prayer of Mending is just so powerful, and nothing has really changed about that over the years, where, you know, we even get set bonuses. They just, you know, all of Warlords, they just gave us set bonuses for Prayer of Mending, and it was like, oh, here you go, you know. It's like, you have to have a point where you kind of move on from that, and there needs to be a rebalancing in the future at some point, where Prayer of Mending will have to be reined in, and your other spells will kind of have to be brought up, you know. We're at a point right now where, you know, our Echo of Light, our Mastery, is going to be so much heavy passive healing, and that's only going to continue as we're getting higher and higher geared, where you have so many big parts of your spellbook that are passive healing, or so much of your healing is based around, you know, just casting an ability on cooldown in the right direction at the right target. You know, so many times it's not enough of a balance between passive healing and active healing, and we're not rewarded enough for having active abilities in our talents. I mean, look at the basic raid healing talents, right? Most of them are going to be passives, and most of them are really things that you kind of set and forget. Like, is it nice to have divinity up for when you cast, you know, another holy word? Sometimes. You know, how much are you actually staring at your divinity bar as you're casting other abilities with a thought process in your head of saying, oh, I'm going to get the divinity buff? Yeah, like, for me personally, not really. You know, I'm focusing on my fundamentals of just casting my holy words on cooldown, you know. Because setting up a good divine hymn is pretty much the closest I'm going to get to saying, cast Prayer of Mending, cast a holy word, cast divine hymn, great. Now I just kind of sit back, you know. So many times you have, you know, all these different buffs and stuff like that look all cool, but they're really not that impactful to us, you know? Do I keep in mind, oh my gosh, I have 10% mana regen with Enlightenment? No, I mean, sure, I notice it when I don't have it, but none of the Holy Priest talents really kind of stick out to you of saying, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm here, you know? It's all passive, behind the scenes, and just adds to your healing breakdown, you know? I think in the future, I really would like to see the devs be a lot more adventurous with Holy Priest talents. I kind of get that it's something that, oh, okay, Holy Priest has been, you know, that kind of generic cookie-cutter healer and stuff for a long time, but I really would like to see them step up and change a lot of the talents around and really push us towards more active talents. I gotta say, this expansion, I love Holy Priest, don't get me wrong, but I really, really hate running all passive talents. And honestly, it feels very, very crappy when they have minimal impacts of saying, oh, you get a little extra serendipity out of your Prayer of Mendings. Oh boy. You know, that you're casting anyway. Oh, those holy words you're casting anyway. They give you a buff sometimes. Oh, your Prayer of Mendings that you're casting anyway. They leave renew sometimes. Oh, you have more mana regen. Great. Oh, if you die in angel form, you just get a little bit longer duration. But you're not staring at the duration anyway because you're just trying to spam your heart out. Like, none of the talents are actually giving you a lot of thought process. They're not really kind of engaging you at all. And I think that's really, if anything, the biggest failure of Holy Priest, I'd say, this expansion, which, to be fair, is not the end of the world because there's many specs which are just unplayable. So, I think we have it pretty good overall. But that being said, going on to the next expansion, I'd really like to see them be a lot more adventurous, a lot braver with our talents, and a lot braver if there's an artifact or something like that, with the interactions that those the talent are specking into a talent will carry over into an artifact. Something where Binding Heal will proc Blessing of Toure. Something very, very simple like that would definitely be very beneficial. And there's always going to be extra clauses, extra situations and stuff, but I'd like to see that happen. So let me know what you guys think. Appreciate checking out the rants and stuff like that about Binding Heal, and for me, it's something I really wish I was able to use, as I'm sure you guys know. But I hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to let me know what you guys think about Binding Heal, or if any other talents or new talents you think of that would be really cool for next expansion. It's still a long ways away, but it wouldn't hurt to get our ideas together pretty early, alright? Hope you all enjoy it. Have a good one. I'll catch y'all next time.